Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Now this video is going to be a bit of a mashup of three separate and distinct issues. First, we've got Jarrell Miller. He is back November 17th. That is now confirmed officially. I'll get to that news, some of the press release, and a few thoughts. We also have Kubrat Pulev and Hughie Fury weighing in. And Pulev weighing in the lightest since 2010. So he is ready for an active and moving Fury, clearly. And also, Dominic Breazeale. He's got to be the most optimistic man in the heavyweight division. More on that soon. But in terms of Jarrell Miller, so see on screen here. So Matchroom Boxing has confirmed via press release, which I've seen actually almost reprinted word for word elsewhere. So the press release says Miller, Rios and Shields Top Rank Kansas show November 17. Promo poster here doesn't have Miller's opponent yet. So what's going to happen with that is there's going to be a press conference after the Jacobs and Derevyanchenko show. So that will be tomorrow. So that will be tomorrow night in New York. So the press release reads: heavyweight star Jarrell Miller continues his rapid rise. Clarissa Shields defends her IBF, WBA and WBC world middleweight title, yada yada yada. Miller has stepped up his pursuit of world title action, and the unbeaten Brooklyn banger is fresh from demolishing Polish legend Tomasz Adamek inside 2 rounds in Chicago in October to move to 22-0-1 with his 19th KO win. And his opponent for his fight on November 17th will be unveiled at a press conference in New York on Saturday evening. Okay, so I won't get into the rest of the cards because this is a heavyweight channel, but in terms of Miller, so this is quite a short turnaround for Miller. He was in the ring on October the 6th in Chicago. No, November the 17th, about 5.5 weeks later. So in terms of this, not exactly surprising that he's going to be fighting, because news of this has been sort of filtering out in the past couple of days. And the opponent, well, that is going to be named, but I think we already know it's going to be Bogdan Dinu. And even Jarrell Miller has alluded to that in his post on social media. So you see the promo here on the left-hand side. His message is, get the strap, November 17 in Kansas, follow the yellow brick road at Dinu. That's a clear message that it is going to be Bogdan Dinu, and we kind of already know that as well from the fact that Bogdan Dinu, who was meant to be fighting on the Pulev and Fury undercard against Tom Little, he has been released from that obligation, and multiple media outlets, including from Dinu's native Romania, are reporting that he's flying to the United States and he will be fighting Miller. As I noted in a video the other day, the WBA mess, Jarrell Miller, Bogdan Dinu, Frezakendo and Manuel Cha, it was quite the long title there. This is actually an in-house fight. Miller and Dinu are promoted by Greg Cohen, so quite an easy fight to make. But the question now, and I'll get more into my thoughts on the opponent after it's confirmed tomorrow that it is going to be Dinu. But the question for me now is a belt going to be on the line here? Because there has been talk of that the WBA regular title is going to be on the line. And as I mentioned the other day, the trouble with that is it hasn't been stripped or it hasn't been vacated by Manuel Cha yet. He's obviously under a cloud at the moment. He allegedly failed a drugs test ahead of his scheduled fight with Frezakendo in September. So it'll be very interesting to see what actually happens at this press conference. And you might have also noticed in the press release, it was very careful not to mention the WBA title. It just sort of said Miller has stepped up in pursuit of world title action. So I am going to be interested to see what exactly happens, because if Eddie Hearn sort of says this fight is on, but we're going to look to have that regular title put on the line, well, that's not exactly reassuring. It doesn't mean that it will be, because Manuel Cha, we just don't know what's going on with that situation. He claims that he's cleared his B sample. And I think without the title on the line, many fans will just sort of say, well, it's actually not a fight that most fans were calling for, and it's not the sort of fight that Jarrell Miller should be in. Bogdan Dinu, an 18-0 prospect, he is talented, he's got some talent, but there's kind of levels that he hasn't been through yet. Miller is a very big step up for Bogdan Dinu. We just don't know how good Bogdan Dinu is. He does have some skills, but Miller would be the heavy favourite to beat him. But without the belt on the line, you'd have to question, well, why is this fight going ahead? You can understand if the WBA regular title is on the line, then obviously Miller will get cut some slack for that. And Dinu too, because obviously he'd be challenging for a belt. But without the belt on the line, then the justification for the fight, it sort of is lessened to some extent, because it would be seen as another cherry pick of sorts for Miller. And I would note, this is the second DAZN fight for Jarrell Miller. What is going to happen after this? Because Jarrell Miller signed a 2-fight DAZN deal. There is no guarantees that he sticks around. No guarantees that he will stay on DAZN. He's openly talked about wanting to go to HBO or Showtime, and obviously the HBO door is closing with them getting out of boxing. So, 2-fight deal. This is the second of those 2 fights. It's 5 weeks after his first. You'd have to wonder, and because obviously if there is a title on the line here and Miller picks it up, then obviously it makes him a bit more of a commodity too, and potentially that could help him get a better deal even if he sticks on DAZN. So there's a few interesting things here, and it'll be interesting to hear what is explained at the press conference. But if there is just talk of, potentially fighting for a belt and them clarifying with the WBA, etc., that will feel a bit flimsy. And the justification for the fight, it may not be as great as it were if the strap, or a proper strap is on the line. And if it's just some sort of regional or, intercontinental type belt that will be on the line, I'm not sure fans will be buying that. But let's move on. Okay, so Hughie Fury, Kubrat Pulev, they're about to fight. So the weigh-in has been held. Actually, I saw this photo of Hughie Fury. I've never ever heard his reach talked about before. 84-inch reach. So that was longer than I thought. I thought he had an 82 or 83-inch reach. So 84 inches. It's one of the longer reaches in the division. Longer than Deontay Wilder. But in terms of the weigh-in, I'll start with Fury first. So he weighed in at 236 pounds for his fight with Kubrat Pulev in Sofia. That is obviously quite a significant fight for the heavyweight division, an IBF final eliminator. The winner will be in line to face Anthony Joshua. So 236 pounds. I had a look at Fury's box rec, and in terms of what he's been weighing in at, 236 pounds is actually the heaviest he's weighed since 2014, but I would note that, the range of what he's been weighing has generally been between about 230 and 234 pounds, so it's not too far away from where he's been. But if he's been sort of growing into his body, getting some man strength and maybe putting a bit more muscle on, I could understand how he could come in a little bit heavier. And in terms of, his actual shape, he does look like he's in pretty decent shape. But Kubrat Pulev, this is the most interesting part of the weigh-in for me. 240 pounds. 240. And why is that significant? Well, for the majority of Kubrat Pulev's career, he's weighed in at over 245 pounds. Generally, in the last few years, he's been at more like 250 pounds, or just a bit more. And 240 pounds is the lightest that he has been since 2010. So the lightest in 8 years. So clearly, this is a tactic, through training camp that they've really whipped him into even better shape. They're coming prepared for Hughie Fury and his movement, his activity. Pulev wants to be in the best condition to be able to, physical condition, to deal with Fury's activity, because Fury will likely be trying to drag him around the ring, trying to tire his older 37-year-old legs out. So this was quite a sort of, when I saw the weight, I thought 240. Pulev, he is ready for this, and, he's going to go after this. And I'm really looking forward to this fight. Some people, I know, do think it's going to be a bit of a stinker, but I actually think it's going to be a bit of a tactical sort of match early on. But then later, I could actually see the leather flying, and it could have been quite an exciting fight. Well, that's what I'm hoping for, but who knows. If you want to see my preview on this, it is already up on the channel. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to get to, and Dominic Breazeale. He really is a bit of a trier. He's quite a likeable guy. So, talking to Sky Sports, he hopes to face Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury winner in the summer of 2019. So Breazeale, as we know, he has been confirmed, or he was made the mandatory challenger several months ago, 6 months ago, recently reconfirmed at the WBC conference. But the thing is, when's he going to get a shot? Because the WBC hasn't called the fight yet. And that's just the thing. Dominic Breazeale, he could be waiting for some time. So he's told Sky Sports here, I hope to have that shot the summer of next year. We know the Wilder Fury fight is happening on December 1st. Usually when a title fight of that big magnitude goes into effect, there's a good 6 to 7 months layoff before the next opponent gets his opportunity. So I'm assuming the summer of next year. And assuming is never a good thing, because Dominic Breazeale thought he was getting the fight this year. So I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And that is because if Wilder loses, he's going to have his rematch with Tyson Fury. Two-way rematch in place, so we're told. Details of which, and how that is structured, we don't know. But there is a two-way rematch in place, and that is how Tyson Fury got the fight. But if Wilder wins, there is no guarantee Dominic Breazeale is next for him. Wilder could go off and fight Anthony Joshua, or the rematch could be called immediately by Tyson Fury. I just don't see a scenario where Dominic Breazeale is in line next. And the thing is, and this is the bad thing for him, because the WBC hasn't ordered the fight yet, he's not even getting step-aside money yet. So the WBC has indicated it would like to see a unification between Wilder and Anthony Joshua, and it will give some leeway for that to happen. But also, if there's this two-way rematch and the first fight's a great fight, I'm sure they will sign off on that as well. So Dominic Breazeale, he could end up waiting at least another year before he gets his title shot. And he probably knows that. And he's back in the ring on December the 22nd on the Charlo ×2 card in New York. He'll be facing Carlos Negron. But in terms of the what next, Breazeale, he probably to some extent knows that he's not going to be in line. He's spoken just a couple of days ago, about a potential negotiations for Dillian Whyte that fell through, but his hope for a 2019 fight. And he still does have a bit of leverage here because he's the WBC mandatory challenger. And if Whyte, the number one rated fighter in the WBC, wants to take that away from him, he's got to fight Breazeale, and Breazeale knows this. The only way to do that is beat the WBC mandatory challenger, which I am, and I voluntarily put it up and said, hey, listen, let's give fans what they want to see. Unfortunately, it didn't come through. Right now, me and Dillian Whyte have kind of been on hold, so that fight is not going to go through, but there's definitely a chance of it going through in the spring of 2019. But there's just got to be a lot more negotiations go on to reach a mutual agreement. So if I was Dominic Breazeale, I would be thinking that that fight's probably more likely than a fight with the WBC champion, whoever it may be, after December. But, credit to Dominic Breazeale for holding out for what he's after. But if he's going to fight Dillian Whyte, he's going to want to get paid because there's no guarantees he wins that fight. We all know Dominic Breazeale, a bit limited in terms of his skills. He's a big guy, he punches hard, but he does take a beating often in his fights, and he's taken a lot of punishment in his career. But yeah, good guy. I hope that he does get some big fights because he's been sitting on the bench this entire year waiting for something to happen, and it hasn't. So now he's got this fight against Carlos Negron. Good luck to him on December the 22nd, because it might be several months before he's back in the ring at all. And I'm not holding my breath for Dominic Breazeale for him to get his title shot. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.